Du hast nicht die leiseste Ahnung.
Phosphorus, so we can see the bridge from the hotel. There was a small group of people who were outside on the terrace, trying to sort of see what was going on, listen to what was going on. We heard 2 bombs in the last hour, and the fighter planes going right over us. And the last one, everyone just got up and ran inside. It was so loud. We've heard nonstop gunshots. And it sounds like it's coming from the Asia side, right at the bridge, because the bridge is to the left of us. But we have not seen any other Americans here. And for the last few days, because I've been here working, really have not seen many tourists, I think, because of the other bombing in the airport. So there's just a small group of people who are here, and the hotel has just put us on lockdown.
Let me ask you, you said you heard 2 bombs. Are you sure they were and planes flying overhead? Are you sure they were bombs and not like a sonic boom from a low-flying fighter aircraft?
I'm not 100% sure,
okay.
But
so you didn't actually see.
It sounded like they were bombs.
You didn't actually see 2 explosions or aftermath of fire or anything like that.
No,
okay.
We can't see that much because it's very dark. It's the middle of the night, but we're hearing a lot, and so we're hearing the gunshots. And as soon as the first explosion that we heard happened, the hotel shut off all the lights outside, so it went completely dark right after. And then literally seconds later, one of the fighter planes flew over. We've had probably about 5 passes of the fighter planes. They're literally right overhead.
And the hotel, you said it's in lockdown. Is that from soldiers or is that from the hotel personnel?
It's from the military because we originally had called the hotel to try to get a ride back here when the news came out, and they said they couldn't do anything. Right. The military shut them down, and we came. I think
so as far as
we had a ride with the civilian for half of it, and then finally walked over here.
My question really is, as far as you know right now, are there pro-coup soldiers still outside the hotel?
They probably are. They're not letting anybody out.
Okay.
So, for example, when we came in, there were some people who were here having dinner, I guess, who wanted to go back to their homes. And they're not letting anybody out or in right now. I mean, they're letting the people in, I guess, who are staying here because they let us in. But we came pretty after the news came out.
Right.
Right now, no one's moving anywhere.
Kat, again, just be careful. I'm glad you're in a place of relative safety. Kat Cohen, thank you. With us now is CNN Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto. Jim, according to at least the report from a presidential source telling us that Erdogan landed in Istanbul, have we heard anything from him or his whereabouts known? Because obviously that's a critical point.
There are pictures of him on social media being swarmed by crowds of supporters at Istanbul airport, and there was talk that he would make an address from Istanbul. Keep in mind, he used to be the mayor of Istanbul, so he has some local support there, but we have not heard from him since that now famous and remarkable image of him making his statement via FaceTime on a cell phone held up on one of the state broadcasters there. But I'll tell you, Anderson, I've been speaking to U.S. officials, and just as a measure of how confusing this situation is, I mean, we're watching this, we're confused because you see in some areas people confronting the soldiers. Elsewhere, I'm seeing videos of soldiers and helicopters firing on the people. That's what we see. We're confused. U.S. officials watching this are confused as well. They're still assessing the situation. I was just told by a senior U.S. official that they are in touch with their Turkish counterparts. Those lines of communication are open, but that's not giving the U.S., frankly, a clear picture of what is happening there right now. That is the status. That is the assessment. It is a confusing one. And what is clear is that the situation appears to be different in different parts of the country.
Hey, Jim, also let me just show you these images, which we've seen before. These are older images. These are soldiers being marched away. It looks by sort of plainclothes police officers, but it looks like these soldiers have been actually taken into custody, assuming those are pro-coup soldiers. The people taking them away, some of them are wearing ballistic vests. which indicates they're police officers or some sort of intelligence unit, but at the very least police officers, which are more aligned, the police force really aligned with Erdogan. We've also just been getting some disturbing information, social media images posted to Twitter document the aftermath of rebel military fire on anti-coup street protests on the bridge over the Bosphorus. At least 5 bodies in civilian clothes could be seen torn apart by what appeared to be heavy weapons fire. Off camera, a voice could be heard reassuring the wounded that an ambulance is coming. Now, we should point out that earlier in the evening, witnesses said they did see soldiers shooting at anti-coup protesters on the bridge. And in fact, we were broadcasting some images. I'm not sure if it's from that area of people ducking on the streets. I believe it was from that area, from close to the bridge. But clearly there was live fire going on toward those pro-government protesters. So, Jim, we'll continue to check in with you. Jim Sciutto, a lot happening here. The situation is changing very, very quickly. Cannot be overstated. Turkey is NATO's second largest military member, America's forward base in the fight against ISIS. This has critical implications for U.S. policy moving forward in the region. CNN's Barbara Starr joins us now from the Pentagon. The Obama administration, what side are they on in this?
Well, the statements in the last hours have been very strong in support of the Erdogan government because it is, regardless of politics, the democratically elected government of Turkey, and the U.S. supports democratically elected governments, no matter how controversial they are. But now, tonight, the problem for the Obama administration is where does it all go from here? Whether the coup succeeds or fails, if there is martial law, which it is said that there is tonight, this becomes a situation that makes it very difficult for the U.S. to maintain that military relationship with Turkey, because the U.S. doesn't work with countries where there's martial law, generally speaking, does not work with countries where there's military coups by force, generally speaking. The issue, of course, is Turkey provides the base down south at Incirlik. That's where ISIS strikes are launched from. The U.S. wants access to that base. So will this calm down? Will the U.S. be able to stay there? But tonight, Anderson, the bottom line, as you look at the streets, as you look at all these pictures, one of the largest military forces in NATO is not fully under the command and control of the central government. That alone is an amazing development.
Yeah, I want to bring in Fareed Zakaria. Fareed, you know, obviously Turkey extraordinarily well. What's at stake here?
What's striking about what's going on here is I think it's even more messy than we've been describing. There is clearly a division within the Turkish military. This is not a military coup. This is not, the Turkish military has done.
Not a military coup in the traditional sense of senior officers overthrowing the government.
The general of the army making a decision top-down, hierarchical. The entire army is in lockstep with them. They've done that 3 times before. They once did it in what was called a soft coup. The army was completely unified. You would never have seen what you're seeing right now. What is clear here is there is some division in the army. The chief of the army staff has not issued any declarations. My sources in Turkey tell me there are senior generals who have said they do not support this. So this is we're all speculating here, but it has all the hallmarks of some faction within the army.
The Erdogan and his supporters are saying these are lower level, lower level troops.
And we don't know, the validity of that. But this Turkey has had 3 coups and 1 soft coup. This has none of the hallmarks of that. This seems much more chaotic, much more messy, as you were describing. The airport is not even secured by anybody. So you're now going to get into some period of great disturbance. And the one thing to remind people is this looks a little bit like Egypt, right? Where you had a democratically elected government. Mohamed Morsi was the elected president. The difference is Morsi was narrowly elected and was deeply unpopular. Erdogan is the most popular politician in Turkey in 75 years, since the founding of Turkey, since Ataturk himself. So this is going to be very messy. He is not going to go quietly into the night. My guess is there are a lot of army officers who recognize that. So I can't imagine this will resolve itself very quickly.
Fareed, stay with us. I also want to bring in CNN's Ivan Watson and CNN military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. General Hertling, just in terms of how this coup was kind of brought together and actually carried out. I mean, the fact that they didn't apprehend or try to arrest the prime minister, and perhaps they tried, but they failed to arrest the prime minister or the president. I mean, that's sort of coup 101, isn't it?
Well, it is, Anderson, if the president is in the Capitol at the time, but as we know now, he was away on vacation. It's relatively easy to try a coup when the president is out of country or somewhere else. And I think that was part of the coup planning. But you're right, it is extremely difficult to conduct a coup in any way. This is a very secretive thing. You have to have the support of a lot of people in order to get the troops going, and at the same time not letting anybody know you're doing it. With a force of about 500,000, that's the size of the Turkish army, to have them rolling in the streets in multiple places throughout the country, in a country where the population is 70 million or plus, that's very challenging. What you've seen tonight, though, is we're looking at it all through a soda straw. I personally don't think this is over, not by a long shot. A lot of people are saying the coup's complete. Now, this is going to go on for a while, in my view. And what we're seeing is soda straw approaches to different locations. We've been watching Istanbul. That's a city of about 20 million people, and that's where, when the coup leaders say, stay home, we're placing things under martial law, and the president says, come on out and support me on the street, his supporters are all going to go out at 10, 11, 12, 2 o'clock in the morning, while the other side is going to stay home. So I think we're going to see more activity tomorrow significantly. I also agree with Fareed. This is an element of the Turkish army, not the entire army. But I know from my experiences over there, there were a lot of disgruntled senior leaders in the Turkish army based on the 200 or so generals and admirals that were court-martialed by Mr. Erdogan in the early part of this decade.
Ivan, I think General Hertling makes an incredibly important point. It's one Fareed was actually making to me off air, which is we don't know in Ankara, frankly. I mean, all the images we're seeing really are from out of Istanbul. Many of them are no longer even live at this point. And this thing, for all reports of it being over, according to the pro-Erdogan supporters and parts of the military, we have no evidence that it's over.
We've heard reports, difficult to confirm, of some kind of explosions at the Turkish parliament in Ankara, reports that some of the lawmakers there took to the basement to kind of take cover there. We know that the headquarters of the state media, TRT, the state TV channel, initially announced that the coup had taken over, and then the same anchorwoman several hours later came out saying, I was forced to read that by soldiers at gunpoint, and now the government has retaken control of the state media, TRT. But we still see the live image of our sister network, CNN Turk, and it's a surreal scene of an empty studio after alleged coup soldiers forced our colleagues off the air within the last hour. You know, there's one important thing, and that is the Turkish President Erdogan's very complicated relationship throughout history with the military. When his party was first elected in 2002, the top generals basically ran the country, and Erdogan spent years kind of politically jousting with them when sometimes they would make public statements criticizing the elected government. And over the course of the next 14, 15 years, Erdogan proved very effective at marshaling his supporters, at winning elections and referendums, and at basically beating the military at the game of politics, and then eventually arresting hundreds and hundreds of generals and Navy admirals in these wide-ranging investigations that were alleged coup plots. So Erdogan's been talking about coups almost since he was first elected in 2002. Why? Because in the previous half-century, Turkey went through no less than 4 military coups. It had much history with that. But in the last couple of years, Anderson, Erdogan had proved very effective.
This is Erdogan addressing the nation. Let's listen in. Oh, well, okay. I'm sorry. There's no translation at this point. We're listening to it. We're going to tell you what he said as soon as we are able to translate it. We have folks listening in right now. But Ivan, the fact that he is able now to actually address the nation and is in a position to, Fareed, I mean, that is obviously yet another step in trying to stop this coup. to have the president on television being able to speak to the nation is critical.
Again, as you point out, this is a suggestion, this is a sign that the coup was not very well planned. You know, if the first step is you arrest the president, the second step is you control all media. We also have reports now that the leader of the opposition, Erdogan's democratically elected opposition, has come out and made a statement supporting Erdogan and opposing the coup.
I want to bring in Ferhat Boratov. He's editor-in-chief of CNN Turk, which was their anchors were forced off the air. He joins me now by phone. What is the situation with CNN Turk? Who was it who came in? What happened?
An hour ago, a helicopter landed on our parking lot with some 15 soldiers on it. They entered the building and they forced my colleague to leave the building. This is a four-story building, one story by one story. They came up to the top level where CNN Turk's newsroom and news studio is situated. And at gunpoint, we had to evacuate the floor. I am still in the building. Most of my colleagues are still in the building because right at that moment, a group of people entered the premises. They were pro-government demonstrators. They first gathered in the courtyard, and then at the door, at the entrance, police intervened. And rather tense moments, we experienced rather tense moments. There was at least one shot that I heard. I don't know whether there were any others. The demonstrators are still in the building, and they shout slogans, soldiers out, soldiers out. As far as I know, the police disarmed the soldiers. They are right now on the either second or the third floor. The police disarmed the soldiers, but they are afraid that their lives might be in danger because the demonstrators are very angry. So they don't take them out right now. So that's more or less the situation.
That's an incredible situation that you have described. Soldiers, pro-coup soldiers entering, forcing your anchors off the air, then demonstrators who I guess saw your broadcast and knew, or maybe perhaps saw the helicopter landing, coming in the building, stopping the soldiers, and the police coming in who are pro-Erdogan, arresting and apprehending the soldiers, and now protecting the soldiers because... So do you know, is the helicopter still in the parking lot?
I mean, from where I stand right now, I can't see the parking lot, but I assume the helicopter is still there, yeah.
So what do you do now?
And,
I mean, this is a bizarre situation. What do you do?
Right now, we are in a standoff. The demonstrators are literally occupied. They have literally occupied the building, and they basically want to grab the soldiers. So the police first acted as a buffer in between the two groups. Right now, as far as I can understand from our security people, they are protecting the soldiers. And at one point, I assume we will be able to convince the demonstrators that their aim, their purpose has been fulfilled. And if they leave the building or if they sort of withdraw to a safe distance, the police probably will get the soldiers out. Right now, across the country, in various places, the soldiers who took part in this attempted coup are arrested. So that's going to be another case.
So do you know what the status of the coup is at this point? I mean, I know obviously you've been dealing with your own situation in your own building. Are you getting reports from Ankara and elsewhere?
I think. I mean, there is clearly one sign that things are more or less under control, and that sign is President Erdogan came back to Istanbul and now addressing the crowd. So there might be sporadic resistance, but I think that will be dealt with in the coming hours.
Well, Ferhat Boratov, I know you have a lot of... go ahead.
But the reaction of the people in the street was the decisive factor, of course.
Yeah, and that was motivated by Erdogan coming forward and telling people to go out in the streets, and then a lot of the mosques also exhorting people to go out into the streets.
Yeah, but it had already started before that call.
It had.
We had already seen people coming out already before the calls from the politicians.
Well, Ferhat, I appreciate talking to you. You've got a lot. It's going to be a long night for you and a long couple of days. I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck to you and be careful. We're going to continue our coverage. We're going to take a short break. More with Fareed Zakaria and others ahead.